Hello everyone and welcome back to Legendary Champions. Today we're taking a look at the Sorcerer Supreme, Doctor Strange. Alright, let's jump right in because we have a lot of cards to look over, more than usual. Okay, so we're starting off with Alter Ego side here. We have Stephen Strange. He's got 3 recovery and the Mystic trait, and his ability says Stephen Strange begins the game with an invocation deck. See insert. And his ability is Natural Talent. Action, discard the top card of the invocation deck. Limit once per phase. Alright, I'm going to go over this real quick. I'll show these after I'm done with the main cards, but so Doctor Strange comes with this invocation deck, a separate set of 5 cards that he utilizes as part of his ability in creating a different theme for his deck. So I'll go over those after his cards. I do consider these sort of part of his kit, so I'll explain that more in a minute. And just to note, I'll kind of touch on this, but you look at the symbols that are covered here, you can see the... here, let me get the light in here. You can see the Doctor Strange symbol in both corners here. Also, there's no resources on the invocation cards. But you see over here how it's just the Doctor Strange picture. Here it's the Doctor Strange picture, but it's also like some magical power effects around him, kind of showing that these are his really powerful cards here, the more thematic ones. So again, I'll go over those in just a minute. Let's focus on his main set right now. So that's the invocation deck. Basically, he has this extra set of his most powerful cards or spells that he does. They don't actually have the spell keyword, so I don't want to confuse you with that. But those are his more powerful, actually, spells from the comic book, and he has access to them at any time throughout the game. So it kind of cycles through. You'll always have one available to you revealed at one time, and you kind of cycle through those to play those at any time during your turn. So you can play one at a time, whichever one's face up. So I'll reference those kind of as I go throughout this deck, so I wanted you to have that kind of preface. So his ability, the Natural Talent, discard the top card of the invocation deck. So what this does is allow you to kind of cycle through that deck and get to the card you want to use. So that's cool. His hand size is 6. His hit points are 10. So standard there. Hit points are a little on the low side, but you'll kind of see that makes sense. He's a very control-heavy protection type hero, so it makes sense that his hit points might be a little on the low side. Recovery of 3 is also low, but again, kind of like Black Widow, he's doing a lot of control effects. So let's flip over to his hero side. Stats are 2 thwart, 1 attack, and 2 defense. He has Avenger and Mystic trait. And then he has Spell Mastery. Action. Exhaust Doctor Strange and pay the cost of the top card of the invocation deck. Resolve the special ability on that card. So, and I love the flavor text here by the Hoary Hosts of Hoggoth. It's something fun that he says, so I'm really glad they included that. I always say that to my wife and she just looks at me funny. Anyway, so what you're having to do is you're having to basically use his hero ability. You have to exhaust him and pay the cost of the card on the invocation deck in order to use him. So, to use the invocation cards. So it's directly related to that. It's very thematic in that, he's kind of focusing all of his abilities, all of his resources are kind of focused towards doing those bigger spells. So you obviously can use him. He's got good thwarting. You'll find yourself using it for that as well, I'm sure. But when you can, exhausting him to play the invocation cards is very valuable. So that's kind of what he's themed around. A hand size is 5, so that's standard. That's good. And again, a lot of what you're going to be doing is exhausting him so you can play those cards. So that is hero card there. A lot of cards. I'll try to get them all in here. Okay, so his signature ally, Wong, is 3 costs, and he's got 1 thwart, 2 attack. Both of those have the consequential, and 3 hit points. He has the Mystic trait, and his ability is action exhaust Wong. Choose to either heal 1 damage from your identity or discard the top card of the invocation deck. So Wong, as you can see, very useful to your overall game plan here with Doctor Strange. He can thwart, he can attack, but most likely you're going to be using him for one of his 2 abilities on his card, which are both great. You can heal in either Alter Ego or Hero, which is great. Also, he has the exact same ability as the Alter Ego side of Doctor Strange, so you can help flip through that invocation deck. I love this. It's super powerful, but it's also super thematic, in that basically with Doctor Strange, you'll find that once you flip into hero mode, which you can pretty much do the first turn, you can stay in hero mode a long time with Doctor Strange, if not your entire game, because he just has so many protection elements that he can use, and he can, be being healed. He can, he's constantly blocking things with different effects, canceling certain things. But also, again, you have that ability right here that you have on your Alter Ego side. So if you did switch, you could double up with Wong and your Alter Ego side. But you have the ability right there you can use in hero form when Wong's out. So it's another reason to not have to switch back to Alter Ego mode. And I think that's really thematic because you're not, in the comics, Doctor Strange doesn't spend a lot of time as Stephen Strange since after he lost the use of his hands as a doctor, right? Once he became Doctor Strange, he just kind of dove right in. And so I think that's really cool. Once he switched, you don't have to switch back a lot. And so that's a really neat way they kind of played that in. So that's Wong. He's absolutely essential to your game plan. All right, next we have 2 copies of Astral Projection. This is 2 costs event. It's spell and thwart. Hero action thwart. Choose a scheme, remove 3 threat from that scheme, and look at the top card of the encounter deck. For each boost icon on the card, remove 1 additional threat from the chosen scheme. This is a great card, and you're going to find out that Doctor Strange has a ton of thwarting. I would say he's the best natural thwarter in the game now. He's just got so much available to him in his basic kit and then the invocation deck, plus he's got 2 thwart. He's just got so much available to him in the way of getting rid of threat. But 3 threat for 2 cost is really good. Plus, you get to look at the top card of the encounter deck. You have an idea of what's coming. And, you get to possibly remove even additional threat on top of that 3, which is crazy good. So, super awesome card. All right, next we have Magic Blast, a 3-cost event. It's an attack spell. Hero action attack. Deal 5 damage to an enemy and discard the top card of your deck. If that card's printed resource has physical, stun the enemy. Energy, deal 2 damage to the enemy. Mental, confuse the enemy. Or if it's wild, do all of the above. So this is cool. It's familiar to Hulk's ability, kind of gives you a random effect. But here they're all good. Now, there may be times where the enemy's already stunned or confused, and so that effect kind of pings off. Or you may want to just do that extra 2 damage. So you can't always control what's going on with that. But they're all good effects that you get when you discard that top card. So you do the 5 damage, plus you get a cool bonus effect. It's fun. It's a little expensive for just 5 damage, but the bonus effect can be really helpful. I've never hit the wild, so I'm hoping to do that at some point, and it's funny. I've hit the wild on Hulk multiple times now, but with Doctor Strange I haven't hit it yet. But still a great fun card, and I'll touch on this later. But he doesn't have a lot of damage effects, so this is very important to his kit. 2 copies of that Magical Blast. All right, next we have Master of the Mystic Arts. This is a 1-cost event. There's 2 copies of it here. It's hero action. Pay the printed cost of the top card of the invocation deck. Resolve its special ability. Then place it back on top of the invocation deck, face up. This is a very important card to his kit because, as I said before, the invocation deck is so important to what you're doing with Doctor Strange. Those are his most powerful cards. And with his hero ability, you're having to exhaust him to be able to then pay the cost and use that card. So exhausting is essentially part of the cost, right? With Master of the Mystic Arts, this allows you to be able to basically do more from that deck in one turn. Because if you're exhausted, you can actually pay this. You don't have to exhaust them. This allows you to pay this, use the card on top of the deck, keep it to use it again later, but you also don't have to do the exhausting. So it's twofold for you. For 1 cost, you're kind of having to pay on top of that. You have to pay the cost of this, and then go and pay the cost of the invocation. Yes, but you're getting to maybe keep a really powerful one that you want to do twice, but you're also being able to do multiple things from the invocation deck in one turn, and that's really cool. So we have 2 copies of that. Put these up here. All right, next we have Mystical Studies. This is just one of these in here. It's a 1-cost event. Alter Ego action. Search your deck and discard pile for a Doctor Strange card and add it to your hand, then shuffle your deck. So, this is one-of card, but it's great. It's only for Alter Ego, so that hurts its use, but just being 1 cost is good. So if you really need something, there's some really powerful cards you can pull out to just kind of help your general build that you're going for your hero. And so this is great for things coming up, like the Cloak of Levitation or the Sanctum, or the Eye, the Avogamato, just things that will stay out on your board. Like I said, it's Alter Ego, so that hurts it a little bit. But it's important to note you can pull out any Doctor Strange card. So you don't have to pull out the stuff that stays out there. You can use it later on in your game to pull out an attack ability, pull out any of his Doctor Strange cards. Even like Wong, it's not limited to events. It's not limited to, like with Thor, it's not limited to them being labeled Asgard. It's any of the ones with his picture down here in the corner. It doesn't work for the invocations because that's a separate deck and they don't go into your hand, but it does work for any of his cards with the picture on them in your deck. So it goes here. All right. Then we have 2 copies of Protective Ward. That is a 1-cost event spell. Hero interrupt. When a treachery is revealed from the encounter deck, cancel all of its effects and discard it. So cool. We've seen things like this with Black Widow on her ally card and with some of her preparations. Being able to just completely take out an effect of a card. And obviously treacheries are typically some of the worst ones in the villain deck. This is great. 2 copies of this. It's cheap to do. The only thing about it is just kind of having it in your hand at the right time. But I feel like Doctor Strange tends to cycle through his deck fairly fast. So chances are you'll have this at a good time when you need to use it. And good, cheap, powerful card. 2 copies of Protective Ward. All right, next we have what was it? Okay, next we have Sanctum Sanctorum. Okay, it's a 1-cost support. Location, alter ego action, exhaust Sanctum Sanctorum, shuffle a spell card from your discard pile into your hand, and draw 1 card. So this is his kind of location support. You do have to be an alter ego, so it does kind of go against that whole staying in hero mode all the time. But it does allow you to draw a card and get a spell back from your deck. Now, he doesn't have a ton of spells, but he has still has some good options you can get from it. And even if you're not, you can't you put the spell back into your deck, so it's not going into your hand. So you're still getting to draw a card. Maybe it's a spell, maybe it's another one that you need. So that's, can be a good and bad thing about this card. But it does get that extra card in your hand. That's what's important. But as far as spells, your options are Magical Enhancements, which we haven't talked about yet, so that's 2. You also have Protective Ward, Magic Blast, and Astral Projection. So there's basically 4 options, 8 different cards, but 4 options available to you. So you got Damage, Thwarting, that Treachery block, and then this one I'll talk about in a minute. But so that's some good options, and you can use it every turn you're in alter ego form. Again, the only downside I think is you're not going to need to be in alter ego form a lot, and so that may limit how much you're actually using this. All right, next we have one of my favorites here, the Cloak of Levitation. It's a 2-cost upgrade. It's unique, an artifact item, automatically gives you the aerial trait. And then hero action, exhaust Cloak of Levitation, ready Doctor Strange. Now this does give you the aerial trait. I think that's awesome. I love it I think it's so thematic when they give the different characters that. I will say Doctor Strange does not get any bonuses for being aerial in the deck that he comes with. I don't know if that was intentional. I don't think he needs to have it right now. I actually think it's kind of cool because I'm hoping later on that there's maybe a villain that you have to be aerial to fight, or that it would be a lot easier to be aerial, and or vice versa, where if you're aerial, you may be greatly hindered against fighting a certain villain. So I think both of those things would be a really thematic way that you can play in that trait to a bunch of different heroes who have or don't have it. But as far as gameplay-wise, this allows you to ready Doctor Strange. You're going to want to get this out as soon as possible. This is going to allow you extra uses of the Invocation deck. It's going to allow you to do Thwarting extra, or some combination of those two. It is an absolutely fantastic card. You're going to want it out as soon as possible. All right, next we have 2 costs of this card, Magical Enhancements. It's a 1-cost upgrade, condition spell. It says play under any player's control. Your hero gets +1 thwart, attack, and defense. And a forced interrupt. When the round ends, discard Magical Enhancements. Now, I really like this card. I do find myself, if I have to pay for something, this one's kind of the one I use to, pay for spells or other cards that I need to use more so. Just because I'm not often using Doctor Strange, exhausting him to do, especially attack, but sometimes for thwart, but it's not always in your hand when you need to thwart with Doctor Strange, and so I find myself using it not that much, but I think it's a really cool card, and I love that you can play it on any character, or on any hero. It's also important to note that this doesn't go right until the round ends, so remember to keep it on through the villain turn, because that gives you an extra defense, and that could be important if you need to block to defend against the villain. And don't forget to discard it as well at the end of the round. Alright, that is Magical Enhancements. And then his last card here is 2-cost upgrade. It's unique. It's the Eye of Agamotto. It's an artifact item and hero resource. Exhaust the Eye of Agamotto. Generate a wild resource. This is great. It's another one of those upgrades you can stick out and be getting a resource every turn. like Super Soldier Storm, God of Thunder. What's cool about this, I think, kind of makes it really thematic, is that I like how they kind of scale the benefit that you're getting from some of these. So like with Thor, you're getting 2 God of Thunders. With Cap, you're getting 2 Super Soldier Storms, but there's for specific resources. And then with Doctor Strange, you're only getting 1, but it's a wild resource. So that's kind of cool way to kind of balance the power of those. And obviously this one would be unique since it's Eye of Agamotto. So that is that resource there. Very cool. Let me kind of squeeze these in up here. Okay. All right, next we have the Invocation deck, right? So basically he gets Doctor Strange gets his full 15 card set plus another 5 cards, essentially, that are in his kit but not in the 15 card set that's considered part of the hero kit. So these, again, are his most powerful cards, and these are popular spells from the comic books. So let's take a look at these. 2-cost event, Crimson Bands of Cyttorak. It's Invocation and special, stun an enemy and deal 7 damage to it. Place this card in the Invocation deck discard pile. And you'll see that last part on every one of these. So it is a special. Again, you have to exhaust Doctor Strange to use these, or have the Master of Mystic Arts card be using that to be able to use these. Yeah, so super powerful. It's only 2 cost to do 7 damage and stun an enemy. That is crazy value for what you're getting. I have found myself, there's Doctor Strange does a lot with status cards. You'll find that out, especially in the Invocation pile. And so I have had times where the stun hasn't gone off because the villain's already stunned, or the character's already stunned that I'm hitting. But 7 damage for 2 costs is still a great value. And, you could get that off a couple times in a turn using things like Mystic Arts or the Cloak to be able to do more with the Invocation deck. So this is great, fun card. This is also his only other damage card. So, like I said, that's one of his weaknesses, is that he just doesn't have a ton of damage. All right, that's his first one. Next we have Images of Icon. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but there it is. It's a 1-cost event, Invocation special. Confuse the villain and remove 4 threat from a scheme. Place this card in the Invocation deck discard pile. Again, super powerful, 1-cost event. You're getting to confuse the villain and remove 4 threat from a scheme. That is really good. Next we have 7 Rings of Ragador, 1-cost event. This is really fun to use. Maybe my favorite card. It's Invocation special. Give up to 3 characters, each a tough status card. Place this card in the Invocation deck discard pile. So you can just lay down a bunch of toughs. That gives you a huge defense, especially in solo. You can block with that character, block with that character. I mean, that you're talking multiple turns where the villain can't attack you with 1 card. That is really, really powerful. That's cool. One thing you can do with this too, I'll touch on this real quick, is because it's characters and not just friendly characters, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you can take tough status card, put it on a villain or minion, and then use next card coming up to change that into something else. Okay, and that's here. 0-cost event, Vapors of Valtor. Invocation special. Choose a status card in play, replace the status card with a different status card. How fun is that, right? So again, you could get a tough status card on a villain and then change it to a stun or confuse. So again, he does a lot with status cards, which just makes his control in the game just amazing. Being able to put on the kind of status card you need to either protect yourself or hurt the villain and slow him down. But yeah, this is a fun one. The only thing about this one is, often comes up on the deck, and there's just not a use for it because there's not a status card in play, or you have the status effect on the villain or yourself if you have a tough that you wouldn't want to change it. You have the one on that you want it. And so that's where his ability to cycle through the deck becomes really important. Using his alter ego ability or Wong to get through to the card you want is very important. And then lastly, we have Winds of Watoomb. Another zero cost event. So again, all you'd have to do is exhaust Doctor Strange to play this. That's great value. Zero cost event, Winds of Watoomb, Invocation, Special, draw 3 cards. Plays this Invocation deck discard pile. So this one comes up on your first turn. You can have a monster first turn. All you have to do is switch to hero and exhaust Doctor Strange. And that's it. Then you got an extra 3 cards. You got a 9-card hand to play with. That's so much fun. You can do a ton of cool stuff with that. So that's Doctor Strange, his hero kit, his 5 invocation cards. Just a ton of flavor with this character. He is so much fun to play. I can't recommend him enough. If you're just, wondering is he going to be fun or not, he is a ton of fun. Maybe the most fun of all the heroes right now. Lastly, I'm going to break my rule here a little bit, and I'm going to mention a basic card that he comes with. Now, most of the time, I'm trying to keep these videos to just the hero cards, and then I'll do the aspect videos later to focus specifically on what those aspects can do for you. Now, a lot of the cards that come in the hero packs are kind of flavored towards the hero that they come with. That's a lot of them will have pictures on them of that hero. That was definitely true with Captain America and Black Widow. A lot of those, cards, Justice cards had Black Widow on the pictures of them. They're kind of themed for her. But you can use them in any deck, right? But anyway, I think it's important to mention this one, not just because it has this picture on it, but basic card. It's a 2-cost upgrade. It's called the Sorcerer Supreme. It's a unique card. Obviously, Doctor Strange in the comics is the Sorcerer Supreme most of the time. It's a title, and it says play only if you have the Mystic trait, so this only works for Doctor Strange right now, though that'll change when Scarlet Witch comes out and probably for other heroes. But you get +1 hand size while in hero form. So right now, this is an auto-include for Doctor Strange, maybe throughout the course life cycle of this game. So I think it's important to mention this now. I'll also talk about it in the basic cards when I get to those, but right now you're probably going to want this in your deck as well every time you play him. It's just so good. It's basically like you're not hindered at all when you're in hero form with this guy. You go back to alter ego form. Most of the time that's because you want to get more cards and heal up. With Doctor Strange, it feels like you can stay in hero form all the time, and there's just no penalty for it. So, definitely a cool card to mention there. All right, let's jump into his obligation and nemesis. All right, his obligation is physical toll. Give to the Stephen Strange player. You may flip to alter ego form, and then choose. Exhaust Stephen Strange, remove physical toll from the game. The standard ability for obligation there. And then his alternative option there is the next event you play costs 3 additional resources. Discard this obligation after you play an event. If you are up to date on news, you've heard that Kang is coming out soon, in a few months, and he's going to be introducing obligations that kind of stick with you. And so this is kind of an idea with that. A lot of the obligations kind of go away immediately for most heroes. His is one that if you do the second option, it's going to stick out there until you play your next event. And that could be your invocation deck, because those are events, or it could be another spell in your kit. So that is his obligation. This is can be a fairly rough obligation if you're going with the other side of it, the other option. All right, his nemesis, of course, is Baron Mordo. He's got 2 scheme, 2 attack, 5 health. He's an elite mystic, and his ability is Forced Interrupt. When Baron Mordo attacks you, discard the top card of your deck. If that card's printed resource has physical resource, you are stunned. Energy, take 2 damage. Mental, you are confused. Or wild, all of the above. So this, directly mimics his Magic Blast ability. Pretty much the same thing in reverse. So I really like kind of the theme with this here. It could be a rough card. It's not necessarily a crazy rough card if you got allies out or whatever. Or even your Magic Blast could take him out in one hit. What I like about it is that it's, instead of being like crazy, like difficult, it's kind of this back and forth theme with them. And from the comments, that kind of makes sense. Baron Mordo's, not typically depicted as strong as Doctor Strange, but more of just kind of a constant pain in his backside. And so I like that there's just kind of this, rivalry feel between these two, and that his minion basically represents his main power blast. And so you can almost put the two together and it looks like they're just kind of battling each other. All right, next we have his side scheme. That's Open the Dark Dimension. When revealed, place the top card of the invocation deck face down under this scheme. When defeated, shuffle the invocation card under here into the invocation deck. So this is cool. He kind of steals one of your most powerful cards from you, and then you have to get rid of it to get it back. So kind of a neat thematic twist on a side scheme there. And then we have 2 attachments counterspell. Attach to your hero. When you play an event, cancel its effects and discard it, then discard this card. So we see him kind of, again, messing with your spells. You see that theme in the obligation with having to pay more. But then, he could take your invocation card. He could cancel your event. That's pretty cool. I like the theme there. And then lastly, we have a treachery, thought casting. When revealed, alter ego, discard a card from your hand with the highest cost, place threat on the main scheme equal to the printed cost of the card. Or when revealed, hero, discard a card from your hand with the highest cost, take damage equal to the printed cost of that card. So kind of the same either way. Most of his cards you can see are not super high. The biggest ones he have are 3 costs, and there's not a lot of those. So that one's not going to hurt you too bad. As Nemesis go, he's not a super tough Nemesis to deal with, but I really like the theming with his cards and abilities. That's Doctor Strange. He is an incredibly fun hero, super thematic. He's got even more cards than heroes normally have that are themed around him. He's got a ton of fun allies, not just Wong, but I'll cover those when I get to protection. But a lot of that hero pack itself is just all themed around him, and it's just a ton of fun to play that one. Or, I played him in leadership and aggression, and those are fun too. He's a lot of fun to play. So check out Doctor Strange if you're curious. Definitely try to pick him up. To go over real quick, his strengths are definitely control, being able to shut down the villain's plans with all the status cards, being able to control what those status cards are consistently is really cool. He plays a lot like Spider-Man and Black Widow. He's got a ton of really powerful events like Spider-Man, and he's doing a lot of control like Black Widow. So those are his biggest strengths. I'd say his weakness is damage, just because he doesn't... he's only got that one attack. You could boost it with magical enhancements, that you're probably not going to do that a lot. And so his options are the Crimson Bands of Sidorak and the 2 Magic Blast cards. Those do a decent amount of damage, but there's only 3 of them, right? So you got 2 in your deck, and you got 1 you're having to cycle through in the invocation deck to get to. And so there's just not a lot of attack options. Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to feel powerful. You're going to feel powerful when you're playing him. You're just going to be controlling more than you're going to be hitting. And you're just going to kind of sort of hit big hits when you get them. That's kind of what you do with him. You basically kind of shut down the villain, hit when you can, and kind of, you'll beat them eventually. That's sort of his game plan. Most valuable card, I would say, is Seven Rings of Ragador, his invocation card. Being able to just throw down tough status cards on you and your allies, or you and the other people you're playing with, can just completely shut down the villain. I mean, 3 status cards, if you're playing with even 3 or 4 people, you basically take away all the attacks the villain's going to do that turn. If you're playing solo and you got a couple allies out, you cover yourself and them, and you've shut down the villain for, if he's not attacking multiple times on his turn with like a treachery card, then you basically shut down his attack for 3 turns. That gives you a ton of space and time to just kind of do whatever you want, not have to worry about, again, switching back to alter ego mode. You can just hang out in hero mode and just keep doing powerful effects. And so that's, I think that's his most powerful card, at least from what I've seen. His weakest card, even though I really like it, I think is Magical Enhancements. Because again, I just don't think you're going to be attacking a lot with yourself. Now, if you're playing with other people, yeah, boost them up. That can be huge. But most of the time I find it as a card I can use to pay for more powerful stuff to do with him. Alright, so that's Doctor Strange. Like I said, ton of fun. Your trivia question from last time, what is the name of the other Black Widow? The one that's, other one in the comics, she's blonde, she's being introduced in the new Black Widow movie. Her name is Yelena Belova. And your trivia question for Doctor Strange, what is the address of the Sanctum Sanctorum? So that's one of his cards here. And there's a hint, it's on the card there if you go back and look at it. But yeah, Sanctum Sanctorum, that's his sort of magical base house that he lives in. So it's got kind of an iconic address in the Marvel Universe. So what is that address? What is the address of the Sanctum Sanctorum? That's Doctor Strange. Thanks for hanging out, guys. Hope you're doing okay. Yeah, hope to see you next time. Stay legendary, champions.